The scent of freshly baked cookies usually filled my small, cozy kitchen, a comforting aroma that spoke of home and hearth. At 70, I, Amanda, had cultivated a life of quiet contentment. My days were a gentle rhythm of gardening, volunteering at the local library, and cherished phone calls with friends. But the true sun in my universe, the vibrant, noisy center of my world, was my grandson, Leo. His seventh birthday was fast approaching, a milestone that had filled me with the giddy excitement of a child myself. I had already picked out the perfect gift, a vintage-style telescope, complete with a beginner's star chart. Leo, with his boundless curiosity and fascination for the night sky, would adore it. My fingers flew across my phone screen, typing out a message to my son, David. Excited for Leo's party. What time should I plan to arrive? And where should I send his telescope? I hit send, a warm wave of anticipation washing over me. David's reply came minutes later, terse and clipped, a stark contrast to my effusive enthusiasm. It hit me like a cold splash of water. No party, Mom. I'm traveling for work. Just send the gift. My heart sank. No party? David, traveling again? It felt like a punch to the gut. Leo's seventh birthday was a big one. David, always pragmatic, had a knack for dampening spirits, but this felt particularly dismissive. Disappointed, I stared at the message, the joy draining out of me. But I wouldn't let David's busy schedule or his characteristic detachment ruin Leo's day. My grandson deserved a proper birthday, even if his father was too preoccupied to organize it. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I couldn't be there in person. My knees weren't what they used to be, and a cross-country flight was out of the question for a quick visit. But I had a secret weapon, Sarah. Sarah was my oldest friend, a whirlwind of energy who lived just an hour's drive from David and Leo. She was also a no-nonsense woman who believed in celebrations, especially for children. I called her immediately. Sarah, darling, I need a favor, I began, explaining the situation. David says there's no party, but I simply can't let Leo's seventh go by uncelebrated. Would you be a gem and deliver his gift personally? Maybe even take him out for ice cream. Sarah, bless her heart, didn't hesitate. Of course, Amanda. That boy deserves the world. And don't worry, I'll make sure he feels special. We arranged for the telescope to be mailed to her address. A small flicker of hope reignited in my chest. Leo would still get his surprise, and from someone who truly cared. Days later, the call came, but it wasn't Sarah's usual cheerful greeting. Her voice was hushed, almost a whisper, laced with a strange mixture of disbelief and indignation. Amanda, Sarah whispered, I saw David's social media. He just posted pictures from a huge birthday party for Leo. Tons of people, a bouncy castle, and his stepmother, Janet, is in all the photos. My blood ran cold. The phone felt like a block of ice in my hand. A huge birthday party, tons of people, a bouncy castle? David had told me there was no party. He had lied. And Janet, the very mention of her name sent a jolt through me, a chilling realization. What are you talking about, Sarah? My voice was barely a whisper. My mind reeled, trying to reconcile David's curt message with Sarah's stunned report. It's all over his Facebook, Amanda, Sarah continued, her voice tinged with anger. He posted them last night. Looks like a full-blown bash. Clowns, face painting, a catering truck. And there's Janet, front and center in every picture, like she's the proud mother of the year. Even David's arms are around her. It's sickening. My chest tightened, a crushing weight of betrayal and disbelief. I thanked Sarah, my voice mechanical, and hung up. My fingers, trembling, navigated to my iPad. I rarely indulged in social media, preferring quiet calls and handwritten letters. But now, propelled by a desperate, aching need to see, to understand, I opened the Facebook app. My heart hammered against my ribs as David's profile loaded. Sure enough, there they were, dozens of photos, a vivid technicolor explosion of joy and celebration. Leo, my sweet grandson, was beaming, surrounded by a throng of laughing children, a magnificent bouncy castle towering behind him. There were balloons, streamers, a giant birthday cake. It was a lavish affair, exactly the kind of party David had always deemed too much. And then there she was, Janet, David's new wife, his stepmother, Leo's step-grandmother, tall, impeccably dressed, her smile wide and artificial. She was plastered in every single shot. Her arm was around Leo in one photo, cutting the cake with him in another, even posing for a family shot with David, Leo, and her own grown son, who I vaguely recognized. David's arm was around her in many of the photos, a gesture of intimacy and belonging that he rarely, if ever, extended to me. The betrayal was like a physical blow, sharper and more painful than any lie. He had not only lied, he had deliberately excluded me from my grandson's milestone, replacing me with the woman who had stolen my husband. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, a furious comment forming in my mind. David, why did you tell me there was no party? But before I could type it, before I could unleash the storm of hurt and anger raging within me, an alert popped up on my screen. You have been blocked from viewing David Harper's profile. Blocked. My own son had blocked me, not just ignored my calls, not just neglected to invite me, but actively, deliberately severed our digital connection. It was a cold, calculated act, designed to keep me out, to erase me from his carefully curated social media narrative. It was the ultimate exclusion, a declaration that I was no longer part of his life, or Leo's, in any meaningful way. My blood ran cold, then boiled with a furious, righteous indignation. My hand flew to my phone. I dialed David's number, my thumb hitting the digits with a force that surprised me. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then he answered. His voice was guarded, annoyed. Mom? What do you want? What do I want? I repeated, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. What do I want? David, I just saw your social media. Leo's birthday party. You told me you weren't having one. You told me you were traveling. There was a long pause on the other end, a calculated silence. Then his voice, usually guarded, was now chillingly blunt, devoid of any warmth or apology. Look, Mom, he stated, his tone flat, dismissive. It's not that complicated. Janet wanted to throw a big party for Leo. And honestly, it was easier this way. Easier? My mind reeled. Easier? Easier than including your own mother? Easier than telling me the truth about my grandson's birthday? Let's be real, Mom, he continued, his voice cold, emotionless. You just don't fit in anymore. And frankly, he paused. And what he said next cut deeper than any knife. You can't give me anything. Dad and Janet are the ones with the inheritance. They're my future. They have connections. They have influence. You don't. You have your pension. You're retired. What can you offer me? My breath caught in my throat. He said it. He actually said it. He saw me not as his mother, but as a transaction, a source of financial benefit. And since I had nothing left to give, I was irrelevant. His words, chillingly blunt, confirmed my deepest fear. He valued wealth and influence over family. I hung up, the click of the phone echoing in the sudden silence of my kitchen. I stood there, rooted to the spot, the receiver still pressed to my ear long after the dial tone began. Then a cold, bitter laugh escaped my lips. It started as a low chuckle, then rose into a mirthless, almost hysterical sound. He believed Janet's fortune would be his. How utterly, devastatingly naive. I remembered my divorce years ago, the bitter public scandal. My ex-husband, David's father, had cheated, a sordid affair that exploded across the local tabloids. In the settlement, because of his egregious infidelity, I had been awarded the majority of their assets, including the very substantial investment portfolio he had built over decades. He had left our marriage financially ruined, walking away with little more than his clothes and the scandal-plagued remnants of his reputation. He had then, almost immediately, married Janet, a wealthy woman from a prominent family, eager to rebuild his fortune on her dime. This Janet also had a grown child of her own, a son from her previous marriage, roughly David's age. The irony, the sheer, delicious, tragic irony, was palpable. David truly believed Janet's fortune would be his. How could he be so foolish? He had no idea. No idea at all. And now, he had just condemned himself to a far more profound and painful lesson. My cold, bitter laugh turned into a resolute, determined smile. The game was far from over. In fact, it had just begun. The phone clicked in my hand, the dial tone a stark, cold sound against the furious throbbing in my temples. You can't give me anything. Dad and Janet are the ones with the inheritance. They're my future. David's words, sharp and dismissive, echoed in my mind, slicing through the remnants of a mother's hope. He truly believed it, didn't he? That cold, hard belief that money dictated worth, that inheritance was a guaranteed birthright. How utterly, tragically blind. But I wasn't just his mother. I was Amanda, a woman who had been betrayed before and had learned to play her own hand. And a quiet, almost exhilarating resolve settled over me, chilling the residual hurt and replacing it with a steely, unshakable purpose. He had mentioned inheritance. Well, that was a laugh. The irony of his words, given the true state of affairs, was almost poetic. That year, after the divorce, the messy public spectacle that had left my ex-husband financially ruined due to his flagrant infidelity, I had emerged with the lion's share of our combined assets. He had swaggered off with Janet, his new wealthy wife, believing he'd found his golden ticket. But I, in my quiet and methodical way, had done more than just secure my future. I had quietly created a substantial charitable trust with the very wealth David's father had forfeited. This wasn't a sudden, vengeful impulse. It was a decision I'd made years ago, a silent testament to my belief that wealth, especially when ill-gotten or easily given, could corrupt. I had envisioned a legacy far beyond material possessions, a legacy of true impact. I had meticulously researched foundations, vetted causes, and planned every detail with my estate lawyer, Mr. Davies, a man as discreet as he was brilliant. The trust was already active, supporting scholarships for underprivileged students, funding medical research, and aiding environmental conservation. But a significant portion, the final large endowment, was still pending its full dispersal, contingent on a few remaining legal formalities. Now, that formality became my immediate mission. I moved to finalize the last details, ensuring the funds would be fully dispersed within a matter of weeks. I spent hours on the phone with Mr. Davies, his calm voice a soothing contrast to the storm brewing within me. "Are you absolutely certain about this, Amanda?" he asked, his tone professionally neutral, yet with a hint of curiosity. "It's a considerable sum. Many people choose to leave something for their heirs." "My heirs will inherit the lessons I teach them, Mr. Davies," I replied, my voice firm. "And perhaps the knowledge that true value lies not in what you accumulate, but in what you contribute." I thought of David, so fixated on what he could get. As the paperwork moved through the final stages, I went about my life with an almost serene calm. I tended my roses, each bloom a silent symbol of resilience. I volunteered extra hours at the library, finding solace in the quiet hum of knowledge. I laughed with Sarah, my trusted friend, though I kept my true plans to myself. This was my hand to play, and I would do it quietly, decisively. A quiet storm brewed beneath her calm exterior, knowing the truth would eventually surface and that David's expectations of inheritance were built on sand. The social media photos of Leo's party, the hurtful exclusion, David's chilling words, they were a constant, throbbing wound. But each throb served as a reminder, a reinforcement of my decision. He wanted an inheritance. He wanted what I could bring to the table. He would learn that some lessons are carved not in stone, but in the harsh, undeniable reality of his own making. I watched David's social media from afar, through Sarah's occasional forwarded screenshots. He and Janet were living a high-profile life, flaunting lavish vacations, expensive dinners, and ostentatious displays of wealth. Janet, with her perfectly coiffed hair and perpetually smug smile, seemed to relish her role as the sophisticated stepmother, positioning herself as the matriarch of this new, glittering family unit. David, blinded by the perceived gold mine of Janet's fortune, was oblivious to the precariousness of his position. He was so convinced he was set for life, so utterly confident in his future. He rarely, if ever, mentioned his father, my ex-husband, in his social media posts. The man who had abandoned me and built a new life on Janet's money seemed to fade into the background, eclipsed by his wealthy new wife. But I knew the truth about their financial arrangement. My ex-husband had come to Janet with nothing. Every lavish lifestyle they led was solely dependent on Janet's existing wealth, and more importantly, her willingness to share it, or ultimately to bequeath it. And Janet, I knew, had a grown son of her own, a pampered, entitled individual who was already positioning himself as the favored heir. David's belief that he was next in line was a fantasy built on a house of cards. The weeks stretched into months. The charitable trust details were all finalized. The funds had been fully dispersed, flowing into the causes I believed in, creating real, tangible change in the world. It was a magnificent feeling, a quiet triumph that far surpassed any material accumulation. My peace was profound, unshakable. I was truly free. Then the first tremor began. It wasn't a direct hit, not yet, but a subtle shifting in David's social media. The lavish vacations became less frequent. The opulent dinners were replaced by more subdued gatherings. Janet's smile seemed a little tighter, her social media posts less exuberant. I didn't pry, I just observed. The quiet storm beneath my calm exterior was beginning to gather strength. My phone rang one crisp autumn morning. It was David. My heart gave a familiar lurch, but this time it wasn't fear or anger. It was a detached curiosity. I answered. His voice, usually clipped and confident, was now frantic, laced with a raw, desperate edge I had never heard before. He wasn't demanding. He wasn't dismissive. He was crying. Mom, you won't believe what Janet just did. She left everything to her son. All of Dad's money, her money, everything. It's all gone. My breath hitched. The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I had anticipated them. His father, my ex-husband, he must have passed away. And Janet, in her ultimate act of self-preservation, had secured her bloodline. "What are you talking about, David?" I asked, feigning ignorance, though my mind was racing. Dad? Dad passed away last week, he choked out, his voice thick with tears and a deeper, more profound anguish that went beyond grief. Janet just read the will. It's all gone, Mom. Everything. The house, the investments, even the trust funds. She left it all to her son, Michael, all of it. There's nothing left for me, nothing. He was begging for help, for validation, for an explanation. He sounded utterly shattered, his voice spiraling into uncontrolled sobs. He had built his entire future on the assumption of this inheritance, on the cold calculations of what his father and stepmother could provide. And now it was dust. All of it. I listened to his desperate pleas, his broken cries. The silence that followed his outburst was heavy, thick with the weight of shattered illusions. And in that silence, a quiet satisfaction settled in. He was finally seeing the truth, the brutal, undeniable truth of what it meant to rely on someone else's fortune, especially when that fortune was controlled by someone who had no true loyalty to him. He was discovering that the future he had so coldly discarded me for had vanished like smoke. David, I said, my voice firm, devoid of pity, but not of a deeper, more complex understanding. I'm sorry to hear about your father. I truly am. I paused, then delivered the final devastating blow, the one that would sever the last remaining thread of his illusion. And as for the inheritance you mentioned earlier, the one you thought I might have, well, that's gone too. As you said, I'm retired. With my meager pension, I can't give you anything either. He was speechless. He stuttered, choked on a gasp, then let out a desperate, almost animalistic wail. What? What are you talking about, Mom? What inheritance? Your money. The money from the divorce. You have to have it. The money from the divorce, David, I stated calmly, was used to create a substantial charitable trust. It was fully dispersed weeks ago, to causes I believe in, to people who truly need it. I thought of the scholarships for bright young minds, the research for cures, the protection of endangered ecosystems. As you so eloquently put it, David, I can't bring anything to your table. You said it yourself. I bring nothing to the table. His pleas turned into desperate, ragged sobs. He begged, he pleaded, he offered empty promises. But I held firm. He had made his choices, and now he would live with the consequences. My hand, steady and unyielding, slowly reached for the end call button. The line went dead. The click of the phone line as I ended the call with David was not a sound of triumph, but of finality. His desperate sobs, his shattered illusions of a guaranteed future, resonated in the quiet of my Sunstone Haven apartment. He had called me a cold, hard truth. I couldn't bring him anything. And now he had nothing. It was the harsh, undeniable consequence of his own making, a lesson delivered not by me directly, but by life itself. Despite David's desperate pleas and attempts to reconcile, I remained firm. The phone calls continued, sporadic at first, then more frequent. He left voicemails filled with a raw despair I'd never heard from him before, tinged with a nascent understanding of his past folly. He begged for a meeting, for a chance to explain, to apologize, to somehow make amends. But the wound was too deep, the betrayal too profound. My peace, hard-won and fragile, was too precious to risk. Instead of answering his calls, I sent him a single brief text message. It wasn't accusatory, nor was it sympathetic. It was simply a truth I had learned through years of living, and through his painful actions. True security comes from within, David, not from inherited wealth. I hoped, in time, he would understand. My days at Sunstone Haven were a tapestry woven with peace and purpose. The financial freedom afforded by the sale of my house and the secure income from the remaining portion of my investments allowed me to live without worry, something I hadn't truly experienced in years. I found profound peace and purpose in my philanthropic endeavors, supporting causes I believed in. The knowledge that the substantial charitable trust I had created was genuinely changing lives filled me with a quiet joy far surpassing any material comfort. I received heartfelt letters from scholarship recipients, saw photos of medical breakthroughs funded by my contributions, and read reports of environmental projects thriving because of the endowment. This, I realized, was my true inheritance, my lasting legacy. I reconnected with old friends, forming bonds that were deeper and more genuine than those strained by David's demands. Sarah, my dear friend who had witnessed the initial betrayal, remained a constant source of comfort and laughter. We spent hours chatting, reminiscing, and planning new adventures. I traveled, something I had always dreamed of but never prioritized. I explored national parks, breathed in the crisp mountain air, and marveled at the vastness of the American landscape. Each journey was a testament to my newfound freedom, a celebration of life lived on my own terms. I also volunteered more extensively, dedicating my time to causes I was passionate about. At the local animal shelter, the unconditional love from a rescued dog reminded me of simpler joys. At the community center, helping seniors with their taxes, I found satisfaction in practical assistance. This active engagement kept me sharp, connected, and most importantly, reminded me that my worth was not tied to my family, but to my own actions and values. I was building a legacy of generosity and independence, a life rich in experiences and meaningful contributions. David, forced to confront his own misguided values, slowly began to rebuild his life, stripped of his entitlement. Through fragmented updates from mutual acquaintances, never from David directly, I learned of his struggles. The lavish life he had envisioned vanished. He took a basic sales job, then moved into a small apartment. The contrast to his previous lifestyle stark and humbling. He divorced Janet, apparently unable to stomach her cold dismissal of his inheritance, a final bitter taste of the transactional nature of their relationship. I heard he was working long hours, learning the value of a dollar the hard way. There were whispers of him volunteering at a local food bank, perhaps a nascent flicker of empathy finally awakening within him. It was a long, arduous road for him, but it was his road, and for the first time, he was walking it on his own 2 feet. My story is a powerful testament to self-worth, the deceptive nature of appearances, and the ultimate triumph of integrity over greed. It teaches that true inheritance lies not in material wealth, but in the wisdom gained from life's hard lessons and the fulfillment found in living a life of purpose. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to step back and allow them to face the consequences of their own choices. It's a painful lesson for both parties, but often it's the only way true growth can occur. I have no regrets. The peace I feel now is profound, deeper than any material comfort could provide. My fractured leg, now fully healed, sometimes twinges in damp weather, a faint reminder of the price I paid for my freedom. But it's a small price for the boundless joy and contentment I now experience. I have built a legacy not of money to be squandered, but of impact, of purpose, and of an unyielding belief in my own worth. My story is a testament to the idea that it's never too late to reclaim your life, to set boundaries, and to create the kind of future you truly deserve. I often reflect on that fateful day, the anger, the pain. But now it's not with bitterness, but with a quiet understanding. Sometimes rock bottom is the only fertile ground for growth. And while I may not share my physical space with my son, a bridge built on his newfound understanding and my own hard-won peace might someday be able to connect us through conversation, not a return to the old ways, but a new beginning on different terms. And so, the story of Amanda, the retired woman who found her true inheritance not in material wealth, but in self-worth and purpose, comes to an end. It's a tale that proves it's never too late to take control of your narrative and live a life aligned with your deepest values, even when faced with the most painful betrayals. If my journey resonated with you, if you found inspiration in my choices, or if this story sparked a reflection on your own path, please consider giving it a like. Your appreciation encourages us to share more narratives of resilience and personal growth. For more powerful stories about navigating life's challenges, finding purpose at any age, and the complexities of family relationships, be sure to subscribe to our channel. We genuinely invite you to comment below with your thoughts on Amanda's decisions, your own experiences with difficult family dynamics, or any wisdom this tale may have imparted to you. We truly value your insights and appreciate every single comment. Thank you for joining me on this journey of self discovery and transformation. We look forward to connecting with you again.